Good afternoon and welcome to this session on how to get the jump on other traders. Today is Thursday, November 18, 2011. Thank you for joining us today. This is Darrell Jobman, your host. In just a moment, we'll be joined by Darrell Jobman, a senior analyst for TraderPlanet.com. The information conveyed in today's presentation is for informational purposes only. It is not a recommendation to buy or sell any trading instrument, and the opinions given by our presenter may change without notice at any time. Please also be aware that trading involves substantial risk of loss and therefore may not be suitable for all investors, and past performance is not indicative of future results. This webinar is being recorded and will be emailed to you, so you will be able to review the material again at your convenience. If you're new to attending Trader Planet sessions, you'll be pleased to know that we have previously recorded webcasts on our site at www.TraderPlanet.com. As an interactive event, Darrell will invite your questions at the conclusion of his lecture. Your questions let Darrell know if he's been effective with the discussion and helps as he prepares future presentations, so we hope you'll help him out by sending in some great questions. Simply type your questions within the Q&A frame on the lower right of your screen, and we'll stage the questions for Darrell to answer. As one of our more revered market analysts, Darrell Jobman trades his own personal account and has been involved in the financial markets for over 40 years. A decorated Vietnam War veteran, he was a newspaper farm editor and editor of several agricultural publications before becoming an editor of Futures magazine for more than 15 years. He has written and edited more than a dozen books and courses on trading. Darrell enjoys helping others succeed by teaching the do's and don'ts of trading, so if you're in need of his help, you'll benefit from his editorial contributions on TraderPlanet.com. It's now my pleasure to introduce the senior analyst for TraderPlanet.com and our good friend, Darrell Jobman.
Thank you, Dara, for that introduction. We want to talk about a subject today that, the title may imply some kind of nefarious action where we're going to beat up other people or something, but it's not that at all. We know we're all pretty nice people, but we do know that we need to get ahead of other people sometimes if we want to succeed in trading. We're not going to be like jumping lines or anything like that, but we're talking about the important strategies that we have that we need to implement when we have the opportunities to implement them. But first, we want to talk a little bit about the housekeeping items. We have a couple of sponsors. The charts I will be using when I show those later are provided by Vantage Point Intermarket Analysis Software. When we do get to those charts, you may want to put your computer on full screen mode to see more of the detail. And then our second one is Wassendorf & Associates, which is a publisher of SFO. Also have Traders Press. Between the opportunities that you can see on TraderPlanet.com and Wassendorf and the Trader Planet and Vantage Point, all of those things, put those together, you have a nice education information package for learning how to trade better and to improve your results. Well, today's topic, as I mentioned, is going to be a little bit different than some of the usual. I want to relate some of the things to being the weather forecasters, or weather forecasting. Now, there's one topic that is common in conversation for almost any place you go around the world, and it's the weather. It's a nice day, isn't it? Cold enough for you? We could sure use the rain. Then, of course, there's always those other expressions. If you don't like the weather here today, wait 10 minutes. Or everyone talks about the weather, but no one does anything about it. So we need to know, kind of, if we're going to get a feel of the markets, a sense of what's going on. It's kind of like relating it to the weather. You just substitute markets in the place of weather, and it pretty much describes market action in recent weeks as traders and investors have run hot and cold about whether to be bullish or bearish, long or short, taking on risk or not taking on risk. You probably heard the TV weather forecasters, if you watch the weather news at all. They'll always talk about, well, there's a warm-up in the works if it's been cold. Or if it's been warm, you can worry about that deep freeze that's coming. It's on the way. They'll try to provide you an outlook, and it always seems to be different than what the current situation is. If it's hot, it's going to get colder, and they're advising you about the cold. If it's cold, they're going to get hotter. It's the type of thing that goes back and forth. And you can talk about the weather all you want, but we can't control the weather, and we can't control markets. We can only prepare for the probabilities that are available to us in both cases. And we also know another truism is that short-term forecasts, whether weather or markets, are more reliable, more accurate than the long-term forecast, regardless of what we're talking about in either case. So essentially, really what we want to know when we're talking about the markets is which way is the wind blowing? What is coming up? Where are we headed? How can I get an early read on what might happen before other traders are aware of the consequences of some pattern or some development? Weather forecasters we know have made great strides in recent years predicting the paths of hurricanes and when and where blizzards might hit, or tornadoes, or some of the disastrous weather that we seem to have on a kind of a cyclical type of basis. I know everybody complains about the weathermen always being wrong, but it's true that they have improved their track record immensely with technology in recent years. I live not far from the location in the United States where the U.S. Weather Services began years ago, and the way they were able to do it is that they would get the information, I think probably at that point by telegraph, from what was happening out to the west of us, and then say, well, that's coming this way, so we can forecast that tomorrow it will be whatever, cold, hot, whatever was occurring to the west, and predict that those conditions would move to the east. And rudimentary as it was just a matter of tracking the storm fronts or the weather fronts as they moved across. And we know that the weather people always have their watches and their warnings about what is going to happen. So if we apply that idea to the markets to get a jump on what might happen to prices, then we need to look at charts. And we're going to look at charts because, among other things, they have the traditional technical analysis types of patterns that you can see on charts. You need to have some perspective as to where the current price is in relationship to previous prices. We need to know where the previous highs, previous lows, the trends, the trend lines, all those types of things. Then you look at those charts, and the charts, type of charts that I like to use are the candlestick patterns, because there's a lot of information contained within just one candle, and then you put a couple of them together, and it helps you to determine a little bit more about the flavor of the market and what the people are thinking. Then we have intermarket analysis. There's always intermarket influence. No matter which market you're talking about, there is another market that is going to affect the results in the target market. And when we look at what is happening to the interrelated markets, we can conclude then what might happen to the target market we're looking at. We're looking at corn, we look at wheat, we can say, well, there's a possibility that this pattern might continue here, or corn, or whatever market it happens to be. What we're really trying to find out is not so much exactly what the size of the crop is or anything like that, but what are investors, what's the investor sentiment, what are they thinking, how are they likely to react as the trading crowd. You can put all the fundamentals, you can put all the statistics together, but the only way really to measure investor sentiment about those is to look at charts, and then to help put something on those charts into some type of an indicator that can reveal some of the market forces that we might not be able to detect by looking just at prices alone or just at charts alone. Now, one of the main values of a weather forecast is preparing and protecting ourselves when the severe storms come. And we know they will at some point. We can't have perfect weather forever, unless some people claim if you live in Florida you can. But if you live where I live, we don't have perfect weather. We know we're going to have some storms, and I have to prepare for them along the way. And we want, with markets just like with weather, we need to be prepared for those times when the potential risk can get out of hand. So when we have this high pressure type situations where we could have disaster,